Okay, so we're going to talk about John D. Rockefeller and Standard Oil. But look, this is way more than just a get-rich-quick story. This is about how one guy completely rewrote the rulebook for an entire industry. We are going to break down the absolutely ruthless, and you have to admit, brilliant strategies he used to build one of the most powerful monopolies in the history of the world.
Which really brings us to the big question here, right? How on earth does one man, starting from basically nothing, manage to take over a massive, chaotic, and totally cutthroat industry? Rockefeller's story is really a masterclass in domination. He treated business like it was a battlefield.
Now, to really get what Rockefeller did, you first have to understand the problem he was facing. The early oil industry was, for lack of a better word, a total mess. It was the Wild West. Imagine trying to run a business where your main supply is completely unpredictable. One day there's a huge oil strike, the next day, nothing. And this chaos led to insane price swings. A barrel of oil could cost you just 10 cents one month and then shoot up to $14 the next.
And the result of all that chaos? Well, it was almost impossible to make a profit. Rockefeller himself figured that an incredible 90% of oil refiners were losing money. I mean, they were just bleeding cash. This was the puzzle he set out to solve: how to bring order to this financial chaos.
So how did he start? His first brilliant move was to go after the single biggest cost every single refiner had: shipping, transportation. He figured if he could control the railroads, he could control the entire game. And he managed to turn this huge expense into his greatest weapon.
The secret to this whole plan was something called a railroad rebate. And you've got to understand, this wasn't your average bulk discount. No. This was a secret, massive price cut on shipping that the railroads only gave to their absolute favorite highest volume customer, which, of course, was Standard Oil. And keeping it secret was everything.
And this chart, wow, this really shows you the devastating effect. He struck a deal with the New York Central Railroad that was basically a secret weapon. While all his competitors were paying the public rate $2.40 to ship a barrel, Standard Oil was paying just $1.65. That gap you see right there, that wasn't just a discount. It was a permanent, unbeatable advantage he had over everyone else. And here's the crucial part. This wasn't just about saving a few bucks. It was an offensive strategy. Because he knew his costs were the lowest, Rockefeller could deliberately start price wars. He'd slash the price of his refined kerosene, forcing his rivals to match him. But since their shipping costs were so much higher, they'd lose money with every single sale, until eventually, they just went broke.
But having an advantage wasn't enough for Rockefeller. He then tried to take this whole rebate idea to its most extreme conclusion. He wanted to build an all-powerful cartel to control the entire industry. And this led to the creation of the infamous South Improvement Company.
Let's just walk through how absolutely diabolical this plan was. Step 1, a secret alliance between the big railroads and a few refiners. Step 2, Standard Oil gets a massive 50% discount. Step 3, all their competitors, their shipping rates suddenly double. But here's the truly insane part, the masterstroke. For every barrel a competitor shipped, the railroad would secretly pay a portion of that fee, a drawback, directly to Standard Oil. His rivals were literally paying to put themselves out of business, and on top of it all, Rockefeller got all their shipping data.
Well, the plan was just too much, too fast. Word got out, and the public went nuts. There was this huge backlash. Protesters were tearing up railroad tracks, boycotting anyone involved. The whole South Improvement Company just collapsed in a couple of months. It was a massive public failure, but for Rockefeller, it was an incredibly valuable lesson.
You see, Rockefeller learned his lesson. If a secret cartel wouldn't work, he'd just take over the industry with brute force. He decided to use the fear and paranoia that the whole SIC mess had created, and he started right in his hometown of Cleveland.
22. What's that number? In just 6 weeks, that's it, 6 weeks, John D. Rockefeller bought out 22 of his 26 main competitors in Cleveland. It was so fast, so brutal, and so effective that it went down in history as the Cleveland Massacre.
So how did he pull it off so fast? He didn't just bully them. He'd walk into a rival's office, calmly open his own accounting books, and show them exactly how much money Standard Oil was making while they were losing everything. He let the rumors fly that he still had a secret railroad deal in his back pocket. He made selling out seem like the only smart move. The choice was obvious: fight a battle you know you're going to lose, or take the cash and walk away.
So, with Cleveland basically conquered, Rockefeller moved on to his final, grand strategy for creating a monopoly nobody could ever break. The goal wasn't just to buy up your rivals anymore. The new goal was to own everything, the entire process.
Just think about how the oil business worked back then.
It was all broken up. As a refiner, you had to buy crude oil from drillers, pay the railroads to ship it, buy your barrels from a barrel maker, and then rely on separate distributors to sell your product. You were totally dependent on a dozen other companies just to stay in business.
Rockefeller's answer to this was a strategy called vertical integration, and it's an idea that would define big business for the next 100 years. It's a simple concept, but incredibly powerful. Just own and control every single step of the process yourself. Why depend on anyone else? The idea was to get rid of any and all outside costs and control the entire chain, from the ground all the way to the customer's lamp.
And that is exactly what he did. Standard Oil bought its own oil fields. It built its own pipelines to cut the railroads out completely. It manufactured its own barrels. It created its own delivery network. Its tentacles reached into every single corner of the industry, which is how it got its famous nickname, the Octopus.
And the result of all these strategies combined, by the late 1870s, not even 10 years after the Cleveland Massacre, Standard Oil controlled an estimated 90% of all the oil refining in the entire country. He hadn't just beaten his competition. For all practical purposes, he had erased it.
So you're left with this question, right? Was Rockefeller a brilliant business genius who brought order and efficiency to a chaotic industry? Or was he a ruthless predator who would just crush anyone who got in his way? You know, the answer is probably a little bit of both. But one thing is undeniable. His playbook, using massive scale to force down costs, weaponizing those costs against rivals, and controlling the entire supply chain, that didn't die in the 19th century. You can see echoes of it in the strategies of some of the biggest, most powerful companies in the world today.